do you want? I want to ask you some questions. What happened?
I covered my tracks, scrambled the records. We were being hunted.
By who?
Blade Runner 2049, the sequel to the 1982 critical smash Blade Runner. Now, it's funny because I hadn't seen the first one yet. We just came back from the sequel, and taking place 30 years after the events of the first film, replicants are also known as Blade Runners. They are almost like robots who have been hunted down since 2020 due to some kind of invasion of power or something. There was a blackout event that basically wiped out all the replicants at once, and any replicant who tries to escape are also known as Blade Runners. I assume that this was the plot of the first one too, but this is just a backstory. The main story follows Kay, played by Ryan Gosling, an LA cop living in the futuristic world of 2049. He finds this box containing a woman that had been dead for 30 years who had a child. And yes, a replicant-born child is a big deal. See, replicants aren't allowed to have children. And the fact that somebody who was a replicant who had a child is like a crime or some kind of issue in this world. Instead of retiring them like Kay is supposed to do, he tracks the location to who this person is and where. So that's basically the main storyline. He's trying to track down this kid, but it's really hard when nobody seems to really help you. He lives with his holographic girlfriend, who she actually pairs up with him in certain situations. She doesn't have much of a personality for the most part. There are times where she does have legitimate feelings for Kay, but it's almost glanced over.
Sometimes she could be real because there's like a lot
She feels real, but she is actually a hologram in a computer.
You know the thing that he got?
Yeah, it's a little portable device.
It's an emulator.
It's
an emulator. That's what it said.
Kind of like one of those book lamps, a little bit.
It's an emulator.
I know it's an emulator, but it's kind of interesting how the technology works a little bit. But anyway, Kay is trying to find his child, and that's pretty much where the whole movie takes place in. But let's get the good out of the way. The movie is very visually interesting. I was really soaked into this world.
It looked pretty.
You know, flying cars, holographic advertisements and stuff. You know, all the different technologies. It just makes your brain explode seeing all these different things going on. And I love sci-fi, don't get me wrong. And you're probably saying, oh yeah, we've seen all this stuff before. Back to the Future 2 and everything. It's Fifth Element. It's nothing new. But yeah, and it was nothing new for me too. But I think what they did, considering that this takes place 30 years after the first Blade Runner, which had a lot of the same visual elements, it was pretty good. It reminded me of Tron Legacy a little bit, how they try to recreate the world of Tron after the first one. Harrison Ford, who played Deckard in the first one, returns. Deckard comes in around the last third, and we'll get back to that. He scrambled the records and went into hiding when the whole blackout event happened that wiped out every replicant in the world. He couldn't find the kid even if he tried to. And yes, the child was Deckard's. This guy, this blind sort of random person named, I guess his name is Murphy, played by Jared Leto. His whole idea, his whole thing is that he wants to use Deckard so that he wants Deckard's child, but it's never clear what his motivations are. Yes, I know we're getting into the negatives now, so we might as well just get that out of the way. This guy's plan is so convoluted because I have absolutely no idea what he wants.
I don't know what
it's very, very confusing.
I don't know what he was doing either.
Okay, he says like 3 different things in all his appearances. First he says that he created replicants and then he wants to create new ones. And then he's also saying, I made like millions of replicants, and that if you help me find your kid, I will give you like a million things. And his plans are so convoluted, and there's something involving tracking and
that lady was pretty insane.
and using Deckard, and there's all these different things, and I'm just like, okay, if you don't want to take the time to explain yourself, that's fine, but don't expect us to know what's going on. You know, if you don't want to do like what M. Night Shyamalan did with The Last Airbender and just explain, that's fine. I understand.
Sucked.
Don't do that. Just don't do that. New writers out there.
That's how
but
the movie
please,
sucked. Trust me.
But please, don't act like we're supposed to know what's going on. And I wish his plans were more explained, because he does nothing throughout the whole movie. Throughout the whole movie, he does absolutely nothing, and he just stands around in this building that's literally all yellow, and there's water everywhere, and it's
pretty decent though.
And while it's visually interesting, I can't get fully invested if I don't know who this guy is.
I'm gonna tell you something. The villain is kind of confusing. I don't know what his motivation.
He's not a villain. He's just
whatever he is.
He's just some random threat, and I'm just like, please stop.
The lady, she was so freaking at the ending. The crazy.
I don't even know who his lady is, but she works for Jared Leto. She works for him, and that was fine. I'm like, okay, you know, she's not bad.
And not that lady over there. The other lady who was actually working with the blind dude.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, she's insane.
The woman who works for Jared Leto, she did not have a personality at all, and I didn't care for her because she was just like, okay, I work for Murphy or whatever his name is. You have a decent cast. You got Ryan Gosling. You got Harrison Ford. Who, okay, let me talk about him. See, this movie is a sci-fi. This movie is a sci-fi epic. And Harrison Ford doesn't come in until the last third.
That's why he's nitty picky and pissy about it this time. Because
my problem with that is that he's second billing. Look at this poster. Look at this poster. See his name? He's second billing.
But at least
do you understand this movie? Do you understand when you have a character that's second billing in your credits? You're supposed to feature him more.
You know, at least he showed up. I should be happy about that.
Whoop-de-doo, he showed up. He showed up about as much as Luke Skywalker in The Force Awakens.
At least he showed up.
True.
Be happy about that, dude.
Deckard was just hardly used. Or if he was used for wrong purposes. Sure, he went into hiding. Cool.
What about the top guy? Was he cool too?
Well, I mean, you have Robin Wright as Lieutenant Joshi. She's the one who always watches after Kay, and
I was asking how Kay is. That's what I'm asking.
Kay was okay. To the movie's credit, the reason why he's hardly acting in this, why he hardly gives any emotions, is because this is on purpose. This is a world that's hardly ever. This is a world that hardly has any emotion at all. Throughout the whole thing, Kay, at least toward the second act, he's trying to find out which memories were implanted in me from the day I was created, and which memories are real. And he's trying to find out basically if he's really human or not. And I thought, okay, well, that would probably explain why he just kind of acts like this all the time. I don't really understand. What do you think is going on? I'm trying to find out. I mean, he wasn't bad or anything. Trust me, I loved him in La La Land. But at the same time, I wish we could have.
Dude, at least he was pretty.
I still can't get over that. Use more of Deckard anyway. But you also have. I mean, the cast was okay. I have nothing bad to say about the main cast. That was fine. As for the storytelling aspect, this movie, my biggest gripe with this movie, and I'm not saying this movie's bad by any means. It's visually interesting. It has a lot to offer. It's very unique. It's, at the very least, a well-made film. It's at least well-constructed. I was actually into it throughout the first half. I was actually thinking, hey, this is cool. This whole futuristic society and everything, you know, is trying to find a kid and everything. That's cool. I thought that was great. Replicants and, you know, trying to find, you know, this kid. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then the second act started to drag. Like, it really went a nosedive. I was just thinking, okay, this movie's running way too long. And that's because the movie is 2 hours and 45 minutes.
45 minutes.
It's 45 minutes.
Okay.
I was just thinking, God, would it hurt to cut some of it down? because, I mean, the first movie, no matter what version you watch, there's 5 versions of the first Blade Runner. It's
Which
at
one
least
you're
under
supposed-
2
which-
hours.
Which one are you supposed to watch this one? Like all of it or something?
At this point, I might as well. But
okay.
but even no matter which version you watch of Blade Runner, if you've seen Blade Runner, it's at least under 2 hours. In that amount of time, you can at the very least get everything you needed to in that amount of time. This movie was doing great throughout the first act, and then it dragged and dragged and dragged. And I was just saying to myself, "Oh my God, I'm losing interest. Get interesting right now." And I was just,
Right now.
I was getting, and then the third act, I was just like, okay, now you're doing something. Now you're doing something. I was just sitting there. There was stuff in it that drags forever. There are some parts that don't even add anything to the story, and all it does is to show, hey, we're in a really high-tech society, and we're in this dark future and everything, but this future, this side of a Super Mario Bros. Movie, or the first Blade Runner, okay, cool, we're in this world now.
Hold on.
And I was just like, tell a story, because the second act doesn't have a story anymore. The third act continues the story, but it's like, just cut out the second act.
And to let you know, I wish they actually brought back the computer lady, the holographic girl, because they brought her
Well,
back.
she kind of did in some form. There's a part where Kay walks on this bridge and this giant holographic
that wasn't
advertisement
actually her.
billboard. No, it kind of, because they're kind of made from they're made in the same factory. Actually, the holographic girl was made in this one factory where the advertisement is everything you hear, everything you see. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because this giant version of the advertisement comes down, talks to Kay for about a minute, and you know, it's like you could tell that she's kind of there in some form or whatever. And I was just like, okay, that's fine. But it was just, it felt like some people were used properly and some people weren't used at all. And I don't want to spoil too much in this film. I don't really feel like we need to, because you should just see it for yourself, because you might actually get into this if you're really, really that hardcore about this kind of stuff. But for me, I was just saying to myself, you had me at the first act, you lost me on the second, and then you kind of won me back a teeny bit in the third.
You need to let you know, in Blade Runner, yeah, I don't see any Blade Runner running around anywhere. Blade Runner. See, where's a blade and where's a runner? No, it's no blade and no runner.
Blade Runner is the term of a replicant who runs away from the order of things.
Okay.
It's kind of like Logan's Run. In Logan's Run, it takes place in the 21st century, where by the time you reach the age of 30, there's a little star thing that's on your hand. When it blinks red, it means that you have to go into this carousel and be reborn, or they say renewed. And anybody who runs, they're called runners. So, if anything, Blade Runner, at least the world of Blade Runner, reminded me more of Logan's Run than it did the first Blade Runner. And don't get me wrong, this world is very interesting. Reminded me of WALL-E in bits. There were parts of it that reminded me of WALL-E. And there were parts of it that reminded me of maybe one of the Resident Evil movies. And there were other parts that reminded me of Metropolis and even the first Blade Runner, which is exactly what it's trying to be. And I was on board with it for a while. So I'm not gonna say that.
For me, it was not.
I'm not gonna say that I didn't enjoy this movie, because I did like where it was going at parts. But you seriously needed to cut some stuff down.
The villain made no sense or whatever that.
Yeah, I know. I just couldn't. I was just on overload by that point. I didn't care anymore what the villain was. And you know, if we're gonna go see the movie, because if you can actually piece together this mystery over who Jared Leto's character is, then be my guest, be our guest, you know. But I'm just saying, just do yourself a favor, and if you are planning on seeing this, make sure you have extra time on your hands, because it's really long. Let's talk about the score for a minute. Oh my god. The score was just all over the place. If it's supposed to be futuristic, They did it on purpose. And yes, it's a Hans Zimmer score, and I'm like, oh my god, he's known for that stuff. But it was like, I did not like the score. I thought it was loud, I thought it was noisy, and it was just blah. But, you know what, and actually the cinematography is really good. At least it shows everything you need to see. It shows everything and more. It works. So, but the story was like, you had me in the first act, then you lost me in the second act, and then you kind of won me over a little bit in the third. So I'm not going to say don't watch this,
It's pretty
because
decent.
there's lots to like, and then there's lots to not like.
It is pretty decent. Not as great, but pretty decent.
I mean, it was okay. I didn't fully enjoy it. That's a problem.
It was not as amazing, but it was, even though it said 89% on Rotten Tomatoes, I highly doubt that. It's decent. It's decent. I was just. I think
like,
it was way better. It was way better.
I was kind of.
But this was okay.
I was just kind of on overload. I was just thinking, oh my god, please.
At least
You
there's pretty
needed
good
to
action
edit
scenes
this
in
down.
it.
I mean,
At least
oh my
there's
god.
pretty good action scenes in this.
The action scenes, there are a few, but it doesn't really matter when you have the whole movie just trying to solve a puzzle that even I can't solve. And you know what? Some people say...
By the way, I already
some
guessed
people
who the daughter was. I already guessed who it was, and I got it right, actually. Wow. I was just surprised. Boom.
Parts of it you can just guess easily, and you don't... And it's hard... It may be hard to tell in the service, but there's little hints of things in the movie. There's little clues.
Like what?
Like Kay's horse. The little horse
Yeah, that
thing.
I know.
There are some parts that have little clues in it.
But I didn't know it was her, though.
I didn't.
But I did.
You did. You somehow knew.
I just guessed and just got it right.
You have to be Sherlock Holmes to figure out the storyline.
But I got it
swear.
right. I just guessed. Boom, I got it right.
But I was...
Ending. Wow. I was just surprised.
I just wish it could have been better. I wish it could have been explained more. I wish Deckard was in it more. I wish the story was easier to understand. And I wish some of it had to, like... I wish it was shorter, because I was just kind of losing interest. I was just bored at parts. I wished it was shorter.
I wish
it was easier to understand. I wish it was just not what I got, basically.
But I wish the villain was way better than this guy.
But you may say, well, you kind of need to see it a few more times to understand it. And that's true. Maybe if I knew the main idea of the first Blade Runner and then watched this back to back, I probably would. But the problem is, even if I do, I'm still not going to understand the villain's motivations or whatever. Or, you know, the long dragging thing toward the second act. And the whole second act was dragging. It was just boring. I'm not going to say it's a bad movie, because there's lots to like in it. There's, I loved the world. I loved aspects of this movie. I think it's cool on that regard, and I say go see it. But do yourself a favor. Just don't expect anything particularly magical or anything. Don't expect anything as epic as, like, Star Wars The Force Awakens or whatever, because it's not on those lines. In fact, if anything, I think this movie overall, I'm sad to say this, but as a critic, I have to be honest. I'm gonna have to give it a 3 out of 5.
Me as well.
I'm sorry.
It's not. Let me tell you something. It's not as great, but it is decent. I'll give you that. Even though it said it's a good rating of the film, it's popular.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
I'm just saying it's just decent.
I'm gonna have to give it a 3 out of 5.
It's decent. It is 3 out of 5. I'm not saying it's bad, but it is decent.